My guest today is Kari Naimon, the global HR AI evangelist and advisor for AixHR. And Kari, what do we tell companies that you do? How can you work for them and make their lives better?
Yep. So thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate it. So I work with organizations and actually individuals now globally to really help them understand how to leverage AI in any area of business that they happen to work in. So my initial specialty really was down the human resources lane because I've been in that world for so long, but I'm expanding way beyond HR just because there's so many applications outside of it. So HR is usually my entry point if I'm working with an organization, but then I'm working with people in finance and marketing and purchasing, and you can think of any element of an organization that can use AI. There really isn't one that can't use support. So once you know how to do it, it's applicable everywhere.
And Kari, I'm imagining, like, how long have you been doing kind of like transitioning into this AI meets HR, meets organizational workflows sort of role?
Yeah, so it's been a little over a year. I started a year ago, October. I had a job prior to this, and I just got really engaged with AI early. I saw some amazing use cases. It was helping me so much, and I started trying to help other people, and that was really cool and fun. And soon thereafter, that's kind of what I was doing. So I thought, you know what, why don't I just quit my job and see if I can make a go of this independently? And that's what I've been doing ever since. So, yep, it has been extremely busy, ramping up, and really fun. It's been the most fun I've had at work for a really long time.
That's an interesting idea of fun as someone that whose career has taken a similar approach. Now, as you work with these companies, right? And sometimes I'm assuming big companies, they have an approval chain, where things might not move as quickly as we would ideally move in an AI world. Now, what's the one thing that you constantly see that keeps kind of like tripping leadership up when we talk about bringing AI into the workflows?
Yeah, relying on the IT team to do it for us. That is the biggest trip up, honestly, because this technology, it's not a software as a service. It's nothing like we're used to using before. It's a completely different ballgame. And what IT will often do if they're looking at AI at all is they'll bring in a platform or a technology or a model, but they'll have no use cases. They don't understand how it's actually going to be used. They just, we should do this, so let's invest in this. And then it just sits there because they don't do training. They don't understand who can use it or how they can use it. So my recommendation is always to start with a team or a subset of a team outside of IT, really start to understand what those use cases are, and then partner with IT, legal, finance, whoever you need to partner with to then adopt the technology. It's just a very different, it's not previously any software as a service product. IT would bring in, they would put a team together, they'd get the thing set up, and then they would just give it to you, and you'd have to use it the way that they have basically set it up for you to use, whether it works for you or not. This is just a very, very different philosophy. So if you're working in a company right now and you want to bring AI in, my recommendation is, if you're allowed, find a platform that's secure and all that kind of stuff. Be very careful with it to begin with, because you are learning how it's working with your data and your information. But really create some use cases, create that business case, and then go to IT with it. Don't wait for IT to do it for you.
Okay, and it's an interesting question, right? Because I'm assuming you're entering as an external consultant and you're going to find a scenario with teams that might be set up on their ways. IT teams, they're excellent to work with. We love IT teams, but sometimes they can be specifically protective of their workflows, right? And the way they do things. So you're talking about use cases, and it seems like that's sort of like the no-brainer to show them the value and get IT on your side. But in reality, how well does that work?
The company that I've worked with, it's worked really well. You have to bring them in from the beginning so that they don't feel like they're out of the loop, right? It's important that they know that you're going to experiment and that you're partnered with them to experiment, but you're not relying on them necessarily to go out and find the best product or the best AI model for you to use. I actually think, again, in the companies that I've worked with, they value the partnership.
Mm-hmm. All right. And we're talking about this the partnerships, the bringing them in from the beginning. Now, what's one overlooked way in which you can provide them this big win or like this quick win in the beginning that will get them aligned with the work you're
Yeah,
intending to
so
do?
it really does depend on what group you partner with. So again, my expertise has historically been human resources, right? So I will start with the HR team. And the work that I do is initially getting them to understand all the different ways that they can use AI. And I want to talk philosophy for a minute, but I'm going to step back from that right now. I'll come back to philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Get them to understand how they themselves are empowered to create the prompts that work for them, to do the work that they need to do. And then once they have that, then connect with the IT team and really be able to share those use cases. But again, there are use cases across the entire organization. I just happen to oftentimes work with human resources teams because that's my background. And I come in very credible in that space because I've been in this world for, 20 some years. Philosophically, the way that I partner with organizations is I am tool agnostic. I don't teach tools. I don't talk about tools. All I really focus on is helping them learn to prompt, because this whole AI thing is a completely different way to think about partnering with technology, right? So you and I might have the same job, but you're going to do it a little bit differently than I'm going to do it. Your prompt may be different than my prompt. Your output will be different than my output, and that's okay. It is as if you're hiring a personal assistant. So I need to know how to prompt for myself. You need to know how to prompt for yourself and build those use cases that then you can bring IT into the loop. But I've had huge success. Oftentimes when I'm presenting to HR teams, they'll bring the IT people into that work so that they can see what the HR people are seeing as well. So they'll get the information at the same time that human resources team does.
Mm-hmm. And you point out something interesting, right? Which is learning how to prompt, etc. Now, we know that many times if we build these prompt libraries, they might not necessarily give always the same output, right? One of the common concerns or things you hear out, one of the first things I experienced as a couple of years ago started working with AI tools was like, oh, the more I use this, the dumber it gets, right? So we
The dumber
know
it gets? Is that what you said?
the dumber it gets. Yeah, the dumber,
Okay.
like it's one of the things, like ChatGPT is not giving me what I needed, or used to work and now it doesn't work anymore.
Oh.
And we know there are ways to circumvent this and get more control over the output. But now that means we got to have AI literacy, we got to have up training and education, which are things that might not give a return of the investment right away, which is something that companies are looking for. So to bring this question together, because it might be a little bit all over the place, how do we combine this need, for the thing to be successful, you got to train people, you got to educate them, you got to teach them, okay, this is how you are in control.
Yeah.
But also you're going to have another part of the corporation or the enterprise that it's like, okay, but where is the money here? Where, the next quarter is coming up. We need to show good numbers.
Yep.
How do you reconcile all of that?
Yeah. So first of all, I'd say it is a slow down to move fast proposition. It just is. If you're going to go the prompt route, as opposed to buying a bunch of tools that do AI for you, which again is my real recommendation, is empower yourself to learn to prompt. It is going to take a little bit of time. You need training. You need openness to learn, and you need at least one leader on the C-suite team who's willing to take the dive and really kind of get their team involved and learning how to use AI in a way that works for them. Those are the three things you probably need first. You are going to see ROI almost immediately. You just have to be paying attention. So let's just say, again, from an HR perspective, we're just getting done with performance review cycle. You're a manager. You have 10 people to write performance reviews for. If you can lean on AI to help you draft each of those reviews, you can easily do the math. How long would it have taken you to write each one individually versus leaning on AI to draft it for you? You'd probably save 2 hours per review times 10 people times however number of managers. Like, you can do that incredibly easily to prove the ROI out of the box. I think it's a pretty quick turnaround once you learn to prompt.
Mm-hmm. Now, in this regard, right, one of the things you talk a lot about on your online presence is about transparency and the ethics, right? And I can see scenario. I know most people, they work really hard, and they want to do the best possible job. But some people might be like, to quote a South Park episode, I don't know how familiar you are with the one about ChatGPT, but mostly become over-reliant, which is like, oh, it can do this review, maybe in 10 minutes. So let's say you got a team of 20 people. So in a way, it's tempting to just put a couple of things, run the ChatGPT, prompt, and forget about it. So I'm assuming there's also some sort of background work on how, to keep things ethical, transparent. Do we need to tell people for your review, I'm using ChatGPT to speed it up?
No. The way that I teach philosophically, and the tagline to my business is elevate, not eliminate. And what I continually repeat is you need to keep a human in the loop. We should never be taking the output of any AI model, copying and pasting it, and having that be our own work. We need to stay involved. Culturally, if you're with an organization, one way to reinforce that is having a policy in place that says, regardless of how you got to the finish line, if it's wrong, if it's if you have inaccurate information in there, whatever it is, if it's not what it should be, if you were to have done it without the help of AI, but you use AI to do it, for example, it's still your work product. You are still responsible for the outcome. So regardless of how you got to the end result, that's still yours and you're accountable for it. So there is a cultural element to this where you really have to be reinforcing the idea that this is not to do the work for you. This is to supplement some of the admin stuff. So then you're doing the last 10 to 20% of the work. You're not doing 100% of the work, if that makes sense. And, oh, by the way, if we're talking about performance reviews, now I can spend way more quality time with the people that are on my team having those really important conversations as opposed to spending time sitting in my computer trying to write it up. So there's a huge advantage to it, but you've got to balance it out with keeping a human in the loop no matter what. I mean, it gets scary when you talk about the computers taking over, the AI models taking over, the robots taking over. The way to prevent that is to make sure that we're always staying involved.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I usually tell people when I'm working with them is like the best way to ensure the robots are not taking over is to know your enemy, right? Learn the tools, see where it's coming short. So you can say, hey, here's where I add the value. Here's how I can use this as a complement, right? Now, we hear a lot every day about AI. This has just come out and it's going to revolutionize everything. This is a tool that will get you to fire your whole customer service team. This is the tool that it's better than all the other tools. So I imagine you're walking into these organizations and you're going to have the AI cheerleader that wants to try every tool right away. You're going to have the one that is expressing the hesitance. And there's going to be a lot of overwhelm, cross communications, and different interests at play, right? So how do we ensure, again, for companies that might not have the agility of a startup where the CEO says, okay, we're going this way now and everybody follows. Let's hope for the best. But let's say you're talking to an Accenture, Ernst & Young, big companies with big approval chains. So how do you ensure they stay agile and adaptable to all this change that we see on a daily basis, but also that we are aligning with the way they do things, which might not be too quick?
Yeah. So just personally, I don't work with those huge companies. I'm a small to mid company focused. But what I can tell you is what works for me will also work for bigger companies, which is start with a small pilot group. You cannot start the entire organization at once. You need to find use cases. You need to find pockets of use cases, maybe create a use case team where you just give this particular team, maybe the cheerleaders, the people who are super enthused about it, an opportunity to start to build prompts or prompt libraries or prompt sequences or agents that work for them. And you start from there, right? And then you bring in IT, legal, finance, HR, whoever else you need. And you really start working it that way. So small group first, maybe multifunctional, right? So maybe you bring someone from finance, HR, whatever it is to try to start to build their own use cases. Once people start building and realize how not super complicated it is, again, it's a bit of a slow down and move fast. It does take some time, but it's not really hard. It's just building a new muscle. I have turned so many skeptics into cheerleaders just by getting on their computer and starting to build stuff that works for them. But you've got to start to actually do it to understand the value.
Okay. And let's talk about, those use cases in which you were able to convert the skeptic. Like, what are you seeing as those quick wins that usually will get folks excited about AI or seeing the value for them to invest their time?
I mean, if I'm working with an HR team, again, because this is usually my entry point, I will go through examples, real life examples where I've built prompts and I show them the prompts running and I cross the entire employee life cycle. So I go from talent acquisition, goal setting, performance management, succession planning, exit, employee development. And I show them, I've built this prompt. Here's how it could work in this area. Here's it working. They actually see it in action. And here's the output. And once I look at eyes every time I'm presenting, right? Every time I'm with the team, I'm watching people's eyes. And initially they're kind of like, And then that glaze starts to get removed and I can see them starting to click with, holy crap, I cannot believe it. Can it do this? Well, yes, it can do that. Well, can it do this too? Well, yes, it can do that. And then they start asking questions. So the real key here is there's so much talk out there right now. There's a gazillion tools, like you mentioned. It's going to save the world. Here's how it's going to change our lives. But there's very few people who are actually showing practically what that means for you. And you had mentioned earlier prompt libraries. I do not believe in prompt libraries because it's a very individual exercise. You can take a prompt library and take it as a foundation. I would never use someone else's prompt for me just because I'm going to build it differently, like I was saying earlier, then they're going to build it. So it's an idea generator. It's not a copy paste. But back to your question, you have to get people on the computer trying to build stuff. What I'll usually say is, what's on your desk? What's waiting for you on your desk right now that when you get out of the session, you need to do? And let's build a prompt or a prompt sequence that's going to help you do that. And that is very real for people. And then they start to get it.
I like that approach of getting people involved right away. That's a good question. What's the thing on your desktop, that icon that you keep meaning to open and you keep avoiding? That would get me involved. Actually, it's a good approach. I might steal it. Kidding. But
it's going to be $20 every time you say it. So just so you know.
All right. I'll just write it here. I'll keep track.
Down in a contract. Yeah, exactly.
No. From your perspective, right? Your daily workflow, or just the things you do every day. What's the use case that for you it's bringing you the most value right now?
God, I use it every day. I use it for almost everything. So I had to write a very long proposal, biggest proposal I've written so far, multi-pronged, all sorts of different areas that I needed to focus on. And I worked with the AI for a good, probably 45 minutes or an hour to write this 20-page proposal, very detailed. It would have taken me a month, if not more, and it still wouldn't have been as good. So, I'm still waiting to hear whether or not we're actually going to sign on the dotted line, but I was super proud of the proposal, and it was exactly what I needed to be presenting. Very clear, very precise. Anyway, so that was the latest for me. I was shocked at how well it did in helping me write this thing up the way I needed it to be written up so that it was accurate and true from my perspective and easy to read and understand from their perspective. Because they're not in my head, right? And I've been doing this for a long time now, so it's very easy to get caught up in verbiage or acronyms or anything like that. And it just cleaned all that up for me, so it was very clear what I was trying to propose. That's work-wise, but like personally, I'll use it. I'm going to Trader Joe's and I've got these things in my refrigerator and I want to make dinner. What can I make with this and what do I need to buy? Or I want to make a healthy chicken recipe or whatever, like make some recommendations. So I'm going to Africa in the fall, help me plan the vacation. So I use it personally and professionally, and I use it many times every day.
Mm-hmm. What are your go-to tools?
So I'm not a tool person. Like I said, I'm a prompt person. So for me, it's all about prompting. So I use a particular platform called Kindo, Kindo. It's an access point to 15 different AI models. You can start for free. There's a free version. There's multiple reasons why I really like Kindo, and we can get into the security aspect of it if you want to, but it's a secure access point to the same models that you're using anyway. So all the ChatGPT models, the Claude models, the Meta Llama models, and a bunch of other ones I've never even heard of. Just by signing up for an account, you have access to these models, and you can either chat with it, just like you would chat with ChatGPT, for example, or you can build agents. There's an agent builder in there too, which I love, because what that does for me is if there's something that I'm needing to repeat, like we said, performance reviews last time, right? So let's say I need to write a performance review. I want to make sure our company values are integrated into that. And I want to write it in English, and then I want to translate it to Spanish, because everybody that I'm giving performance reviews for, they're native Spanish speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I can write that prompt or set a prompt. So once I get it doing what I need it to do, I'll just hit save. And then all I need to do is add the strengths and development areas for the person. I don't have to think about prompting any. I can create agents to do just about anything. And it's all in this one platform. So I love it because it's gives an additional level of security, and it has this agent building feature that I haven't seen anyplace else.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of security, right? One of the highest obstacles is that companies will work with tons of confidential information that folks will probably prefer are not training LLMs, or like getting out there. So how do you attack this security privacy aspect when creating these implementations for small, medium-sized businesses?
Yep. So the safest route for any company to take, there's one additional safety, but basically almost the most safe, and I'll tell you what the most safe is, but almost the most safe is to purchase an AI model. And there's over 1 million AI models out there right now, small, medium, large. You literally buy an AI model and you put it on your own infrastructure, and then you're hosting it yourself. And this, of course, would be in partnership with your IT team. Then you're in an enclosed space. You've got your own house. You've got connection to your own data. And at that point, when you're hosting your own AI model, none of that information that you're using the AI model for is going out to train future AI models. That, for a company, is a very secure way to go. An intermediate step between that and just going out to ChatGPT, which is the least secure way you could do it, is to have your organization get an enterprise version of, so you could do ChatGPT Enterprise, you could do Google Gemini Enterprise. What I will say though, and this is actually a new learning for me, so something that even complicates this more, there's the data protection side of it. So they'll say in the enterprise agreements that your data is protected. We're not using your data to train future models. However, your conversations with the AI are not considered data. So I could be working with this AI model and giving it data that doesn't go out to the model to get trained because I'm giving it the information. But now I'm generating new ideas. I'm trying to create my company strategy. That's not considered data. So that is completely unprotected. So I go back to the safest route for companies is to think about hosting their own AI model. That really is the only way. Okay, maybe not the only way, but the best way to make sure that all your information remains secure. You just keep it in your own house.
Kari, a lot of the folks that listen or watch this podcast are independent professionals. It could be HR, learning and development, creative enterprises. And they might be like, I'd love to work with Kari in the future. I just need to do a little bit more of business, a little bit more of a process to get there and work with her. Now, let's talk about your ideal client. What are the 3 things you would tell folks, even if they're just getting started, even if they're just freelancers, these 3 actions they can take today to be ready to implement AI and then have kind of like a solid baseline so when they work with you or someone like you, they can be set up for success?
Yeah. So I would say at a minimum, just start using it. I mean, you have to start using it to understand the value. And there are a lot of people that I talk to who haven't even really started yet because they don't know where to start. So there's all sorts of information out on, everywhere right now about how to just get started. So I would say start playing and see if it brings value to you or not. My guess is it's going to bring some value, but not maximum value, but at least you'll start to get an idea of how it might be able to help you. So number 1, you got to start trying. 2 and 3, you just got to start trying. I don't even have the source 3. I think once you start trying, at that point, you're going to, like I said, some things are going to work for you. You're going to get frustrated about other things. And then you my recommendation is start working with someone who can help you work through where you're getting stuck, because all your lessons then can be applied to everything you do going forward. But I think just if you're nervous about it or scared of it or worried it's going to take your job, it isn't going away. We need to learn how to partner with it and partner with it in a way that is effective and we're not leaning on it to do the work for us. Like we were saying before, elevate, not eliminate. And then if you need support, just find someone like me, doesn't have to be me, who can help you through some of those blocks. So in addition to working with companies, I do a lot of coaching. So I'll do individual coaching and group coaching. So that's also because I do have a lot of people who are either one-person teams in particular companies, HR or otherwise, or independent consultants, contractors, and that kind of thing. There are times when I've gotten a group of those people together and just done a section with a bunch of different independent contractors or independent workers, people working on their own, solopreneurs, who can benefit from some of this as well. So those options are out there as well.
Okay, so I appreciate that. And the final question today would be, right now, if you look online, in news sites, podcasts, there's a lot of talk about how AI might have plateaued, right? How companies are finding out that even if they're gobbling the entire internet, throwing a lot of computing power, the returns they're getting as not as noticeable as they were a couple of months ago. So the question is, for an everyday company, right, that you work with, is this an opportunity or an obstacle, this sort of AI slowdown?
Yeah. So the AI slowdown is because they basically train the AI on all the data they have in the world right now. And that goes back to the safety and security of using AI models and the fact that they need your data because they're out of data. And that's a different conversation. The AI models are smart enough for us as users that what you're talking about right now is not going to be a problem. The only issue here is that the companies who sell AI models need to be able to build something different and new and better. And they are now being slowed down in being able to deliver that. But the ones that are out there right now are 100% perfect for anybody who's doing the kind of work that anybody on this call is doing. You have enough information in those models already. It's not going to be slow at all.
Excellent. Okay, Kari, where do folks find out more about your work and the work you're doing with AixHR?
Yeah, you can just go to my website, which is AixHR.ai, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right.
Either or both.
We'll add the usernames and the URLs here underneath our faces that you're seeing on screen. So if you're watching the video, you can follow these URLs. You are health. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, you can find those links in the description as well. So, Kari, it's been amazing talking to you. I appreciate your time. And thank you for coming into the podcast to discuss how we can help companies incorporate AI into their workflows successfully.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Kari. And to everybody else, thank you for tuning in to one more episode of Creativity and Robots. Remember, you can subscribe, pushing a button here somewhere if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can follow the podcast as well. And if you leave a review or a comment, that goes a long way. So everybody, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week with a new episode of Creativity and Robots.
Amo la creación en mi pantalla, bits y bytes en danza, todo brilla, cada código que escribo canta. Sabor a cumbia.